Okay. We are recording. My name is Cade Brewster. I'm the founder and CEO of Brewster Consulting Group. I'm joined by two members of my team. I'll let them introduce themselves here in a moment. But we are kicking off a new show that we're going to be hosting weekly. It is called the Small Business Hour. And in it, we are going to try to talk about recent events and happenings in the world that are relevant to small business owners and leaders across the country. So the format of the show is going to be each of us is going to choose two things, two articles, two events, something that's happened over the past week. And we're going to bring those two topics to this session, and we're going to talk about it as a group. Now, the other two people are not going to have any warning about what the topics we selected are. So we're going to have a totally authentic discussion about what we think the impacts of this news or this event is in the small business world. So first, I'm going to let Tim and Ben introduce themselves. Tim, let's start with you. Give everybody a brief synopsis of who you are, what you do for us, and then we'll move to Ben.
Sure, sounds good. So I'm Tim, and I work as the Chief Operating Officer for Brewster Consulting Group. Really excited that we're branching out, trying something a little bit new. So hopefully, if you're watching this, you get some value out of this, and we can make your life a little bit easier whenever it comes to work. If you work for a small business, because that's what we're focusing on. Operations rolls up to me at Brewster Consulting Group, and then I also lead our project management office implementation function. So we work with clients to be able to do some of that work. Love project management, love everything about it, and that's what I do. So I'll pass the ball over to Ben.
Yep. Thanks, Tim. Hey, I'm Ben Vaughn. I'm the VP of Analytics Services for Brewster Consulting. So what that covers is basically anything that's related to data, I like to say. So whether that's data governance, data management, data strategy, data visualization. I handle most of our client engagements, and all of the client engagements roll up to me one way or another. I'll help out on some of the PMO stuff. I'll help out on some of the stuff that Cage does by himself. But if you're a client of ours, you probably know me. So let's put it that way. But yeah, as Tim said, we're excited to get this started. I think that between the three of us, we have a wide range of experience and different views of how small businesses can be impacted by national news, by even local news in certain areas of the country. So really excited to kick this off, and hopefully y'all enjoy it.
Perfect. So before we dive into our topics, since this is our first episode, I am going to spend just a brief moment explaining why we're doing this. So at Brewster Consulting Group, we are primarily an analytics organization, but we have a heavy background in analytics, data, and operations. And our goal is to help small and mid-sized businesses leverage their data to become more data-driven and increase their operational efficiency and contribute better margins to the bottom line. We leverage skills including PMP certified project managers, of which Tim and Ben are both PMP certified project managers. We leverage Lean Six Sigma disciplines, where Ben and I are both Lean Six Sigma black belts, and we leverage best practices around data management, data governance, and analytics to try to help organizations become more data-driven. We work with small businesses every single day. Our target market is 250 employees or less. That small to mid-sized market is where we operate every single day. We work in all types of industries, from manufacturing, construction, healthcare, financial services. So we see a lot of different things that are applicable in the small business world. And we get asked a lot of questions by small business owners about, hey, this new thing is going on. Is it relevant to us? Hey, we saw this on the news. What does that mean to me? And we thought, what better and more fun way to talk about those things than to just do a show where we look at what's going on in the world and how it might impact people like our clients, but also people who aren't our clients. And we can really dive deep into that process. We're going to be doing the show weekly. We're going to do a long form, about an hour each time, so that we can have a full, robust conversation around the topics. But we are going to try to have a little fun with it, which is why we're doing two topics each, and we're not telling other people what we're bringing. So we don't give Ben a chance to prepare and try to look smarter than all of us. We just get to see what he thinks right off the bat without any preparation. So with that being said, let's dive into our first topics. And I'm the boss, so I get to go first. So I'm going to go with my first topic, which is the Writers Guild of America. So recently, the Writers Guild of America came to an agreement with studios. They have a new contract in place. The work strike that's been going on for some 5 months, I think, is finally over. And we are now proceeding. So hopefully the content halt that all of us were afraid of as far as getting new shows on Netflix and Amazon and all of our favorite ways to consume media is gonna pick up again soon. But one of the interesting things that I thought was worth talking about the Writers Guild of America is this is one of the first examples that we've seen after the emergence of artificial intelligence, specifically ChatGPT, and how that can impact a particular profession. And one of the things, this wasn't the only thing that caused the rift between studios and writers, but one of the major things that was a talking point of their new agreement was artificial intelligence. And in the final agreement, some of the things that were outlined in the terms was AI cannot be credited as a writer. AI generated writing cannot be considered source material, and writers must be able to choose whether to use AI software or not. The reason why I find that interesting is because this is one of the first examples we've seen where people have had to specify legally the role that AI can play in disrupting a specific job or position. We get this question a lot from small business leaders. They see all the buzz about ChatGPT. You can't look at LinkedIn without seeing 47 different people posting about unlocking the potential of AI in your business, right? And most of it is crap, but some of it's good. But we get asked the question all the time, what is AI going to mean for us? What does it do? So I found it interesting that with the Writers Guild of America, we've seen the first instance of actually legally defining how AI can be used in a profession. So, Tim, Ben, A, initial thoughts and reactions. B, what are the industries or areas out there that exist where you think AI is going to play a larger disruptive role as opposed to others? And if I'm a small business owner, what should I do about it? Or how should I start thinking about it inside of my organization?
You might have to ask those questions again because not all of them stuck in my mind, but I'll answer one of them because something on my mind is just kind of burning. So you asked the question, what industry is probably going to be most disrupted by this? I might be stealing Ben's answer, so if I am Ben, I'm really sorry, but I think the education industry is going to be most disrupted by this, right? Like I've got a really good friend who is in the public school system in the county that I live in, and he's the director of curriculum and instruction. He said over the last 10 months, the amount of work from an AI perspective that he and his team have had to have, or the AI focus, I should say, has increased dramatically just because of the capabilities that AI can bring to students, right? Like it's pretty easy for a ninth or a 10th grader to get on ChatGPT and say, hey, write me a 300-word essay that talks about give me a book. I don't know a ton of books that are out there, but and then be able to write me a 300-word essay on Moby Dick and be able to hand that in to their English teacher, and the English teacher not be able to track it for sources and for plagiarism and all of that stuff. So, man, when I think about AI and just the doors that it's opening, I think about the education industry and how big of an impact it's having on that industry specifically. So those are my thoughts around some of the stuff around AI and education.
Yep. I'm actually going to disagree. I think that there's a lot of problems that are obvious and definitely evident. But I think they're all ways to get around that. You know, I'm thinking like in college, right? College is a hotbed for cheating and all that sort of stuff. I went to two
You go to
schools.
school, man. Just kidding.
Well, no, I was actually going to say the thing is, I went to two schools that had a very strong honor system, right? And they both preached very heavily, you know, committing that on every exam that I didn't cheat from anybody, that on every paper I didn't plagiarize or anything like that. I think that's one thing. Now, is that going to actually work? Who knows? I can see Kate smiling. Probably not.
Oh, I'm just smiling. I'm just smiling at the subtle, like, I went to two schools that you worked in there. That's what I'm smiling about.
And I'm not judging both of the other guys on this call right now.
Yeah.
I'm saying two schools because the second school I used what was that I learned at the first school to create, well, not to create, but to help implement their honor system. And so I know, so I can speak to that a lot, but I think the other piece too is I think we're just going to see a return to a lot of handwritten things. I think it's just going to be and a lot of in person as opposed to at home exams, papers, things like that. I think that's just going to be what's going to have to be, as inefficient as that is. But what I was
So,
actually,
oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I want to hear your answer, Ben.
I was going to say, I think that creative is going to be the biggest place. All the creative industries, like what we're seeing with the Writers Guild. Because yes, it's very hard to mimic a human. Yes, it's very hard to have that mimic or that human touch on certain things. But I think what we're also going to see is AI is just going to get smarter and smarter. And as we add more parameters and as we get smarter about giving the right parameters to AI, I think it's going to be as good as of what we can produce, if not better. And so creative industries, I think, are going to be particularly hit hard.
Okay. Yeah, I think just from me personally, to quickly give my take, I think I haven't really thought much about the education piece. Part of me wonders if it matters because, in my opinion, education should train students to effectively use the tools at their disposal. So obviously, if you use ChatGPT to write it and you don't take out the line where it says, as an AI language model, I cannot tell you this, then you're probably not using the tools at your disposal effectively. But if you are creating something that's solid and good by leveraging it, then maybe that's just part of a proper education. I don't know. But I think Ben's right on the creative industries. I think from an LLM, large language model perspective, I think programming, like computer programming, a lot of people think of really hard like IT skills as something that can withstand this revolution, but I don't know that it is, right? Because what it does is it bridges the gap between you have a really small portion of people who are capable of something, and now you've just provided a tool that provides the ability to replicate that skill on a mass process, which is much more significant than I don't know. I just think that it's going to heavily disrupt. It's not there yet. It's definitely not there yet. But I think over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to heavily disrupt IT programming. Whether you're a web developer, an app developer, whether you do a lot of stuff in analytics like we do, I think it's going to heavily disrupt a lot of the ways that people who are in traditional IT professions work. So I don't know, but it's interesting to think about what do you do? What should you be thinking about if you're a small business owner or leader, guys? Like, how's it relevant to you?
Yeah. I think that, I mean, it's here to stay, right? Like, there's no escaping it. It's not going away. So I think you need to best figure out how you manage it at your company, whether that is, using it to help with your internal workflows so that you can either maximize your revenue or reduce waste, like whatever your goal outcomes are for your company, like figure out how to use ChatGPT to enhance what you already know and the skills that you already have on your team to make your business more competitive. Because guess what? Your competitors are doing the exact same thing. And if they beat you to it, they're going to steal your customers. They're going to, it'll be something where it continues down the line. So I think you need to effectively leverage it to be able to meet the outcomes that you're trying to achieve for your business so that you can actually sustain competitive advantage in whatever it is that you do.
Yeah. I'm thinking even more upstream. I'm thinking hiring practices, right? I'm not thinking that obviously current state is important in managing your processes in a way so that you leverage AI in a responsible way to improve your business. But I'm thinking about who am I going to want to hire down the line? Because I think the ability to, just type something into ChatGPT or whatever is one thing, but the ability to feed it exactly what it needs to understand how it's thinking and then be able to work with it in such a way that it can give you exactly what you need. I think that skill, just having that general technical capability, is something that's going to be much more in demand in the workforce, and having people on your team that can do that, I think is going to be like gold,
Yeah.
in the next
I think
5
that's
years.
a good point. I think that's a really good point because if you have somebody who, say you have an employee A or employee B, and employee A is slightly more skilled than employee B, but employee B understands, has used, and knows how to effectively interact with something like ChatGPT. It doesn't have to be ChatGPT. We talk about ChatGPT as a proxy for kind of this entire movement. But if they have that ability, they're really 10xing their own skill sets by being able to effectively interact with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they might be less skilled than employee A, but they're actually way more valuable because they don't have to have those skills intrinsically to be able to do them if they can use something like that. And so I think it does change your hiring practices. It does change what you look for in an employee or how you go about the own tasks in your day to day. So interesting point of conversation. I'm sure we'll touch on this a lot more, but I want to make sure that we get to everybody's topic. So I was thinking we do a little bit of a round robin. I did my first one. So let's jump to Tim. Tim, but what
Yeah.
is your first topic for us to review?
Yeah, so along the AI lines, I looked for some articles, right? I'm really interested in current events and what's going on in the world right now as it relates specifically in this instance to project management. And one of the first articles that popped up as I was doing my research was an article out of the journal's called The Standard. And the title is Demand for Project Managers with AI Skills High, but only few have experience. And after I read the article, it was really interesting. The writer talks about how, we have this somewhat new idea, right, of AI, and it's just absolutely taken off. And kind of a long-standing industry like project management that is spread out over a number of different industries, right? Like you can have financial services, manufacturing, construction, a number of other industries that can adequately leverage project management and benefit from project management, but most of the folks who are in project management aren't familiar at all with AI. Matter of fact, this article states that 49% of project managers have little to no experience at all with understanding AI in the context of project management. So kind of got me thinking like, all right, what does that mean from a nuts and bolts project management perspective, right? So my mind automatically goes, like Kate said, PMP certified. I know Ben is too. It goes to the process groups whenever I think about a project, right? Initiation, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. What are some of the ways that AI has kind of embedded itself into each of those process groups to, influence the way that professional project managers do their work? And it's pretty mind-blowing whenever you get further down the line and thinking about it a little bit more, because that can influence things like your tools and templates that you use, right? Like I could probably go on ChatGPT and I could be like, hey, ChatGPT, write me a template for a project charter. And it'd probably kick out something that's pretty good, right? And it's not gone are the days of, kind of having to pick up a book and learn how to do it yourself, but it's a lot easier to go out there and use a language model like AI to be able to develop some of this stuff for you. So I'm curious what you guys think of that. You guys both have some really good project management experience. You know the fundamentals of project management better than most. So I'm really curious to hear you guys' thoughts on AI specifically and how it can continue to influence that function of really every business and thereby every industry that uses project management.
Yeah, I'll go first if that's all right. I think when I first started learning about project management, understanding what it is, what it's used for, one thing I noticed is it's kind of something that anybody can pick up. Anyone can start to know the basics and know what to do. Going, getting your PMP, understanding the methodologies, the core principles, all that sort of stuff. That's maybe a step ahead of it. But I think on a more fundamental level, the rise of AI, the rise of all these tools at the end of the day that allow you to learn easily and be able to really grasp a concept a lot faster if you have the technical capabilities, of course, are going to make project management and other items like that, maybe basic data analytics you could throw in there as well, something that's going to be a lot more accessible to anyone in an organization, because the truth is anyone in an organization can benefit from project management. So the access to that, I think, is going to be one piece with AI. The other thing I'd say is it kind of goes back to what we were talking about. I think of project management almost as a creative field too within business, in that, as you were saying, Tim, you have to tailor what you're doing, what techniques, what tools you're using to the specific situation. to not create a a flow chart, a logic chart of if this then that, if this then that, but to give you a range of options to to be able to manage that project effectively. I think that that's going to be a big help in getting people not only at that beginning stage of the project management, but also seasoned PMP professionals who are doing a new project that they haven't worked with, maybe a new company, maybe a new area of the company, maybe a new set of stakeholders that's foreign to them. I think it's going to help them out a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. It's so true. It's going to accelerate stuff so rapidly. That's super vague, right? Accelerate stuff super rapidly, but AI can just make everything just about in project management faster. So I'll be really curious to learn about industry trends in project management. How long does it take now for your average M&A activity to take place between two businesses, right? And then they analyze it again in 5 years and how quickly that might increase because of the use specifically of AI in that. Of course, there's other factors that could affect it, but I guess my point is acceleration in the way that we do business. It's only going to continue to accelerate that. So that's good, Ben. Kate, what about you? Thoughts on AI, project management?
Yeah, I guess I'm wrestling a bit with a question, so I'm going to throw it back at you guys in a question. We are operating somewhat under the assumption that access to the information matters, and it's easier with a tool like ChatGPT. And I think that's probably true. But there's a client of ours. I'm not going to say the name on here. He'll probably know who we're talking about if he ever happens to watch this. But he he works for one of our clients. He pretty much entirely taught himself how to build a project management function in a specific application called Monday by watching YouTube videos, right? And so now, could he much more efficiently and effectively find the YouTube videos he was looking for and learn other things and learn that same process using ChatGPT and prompting him with questions to help him get there? For sure. But he did it anyway before he really had that as a tool. And he did it because that's the type of person that he is, right? And so what I struggle with is we have for a long time now, even before AI, lived in an age where we have access to more information than anyone in all human history. And yet, to some extent, we seem dumber as a whole than we've been in a long time. How much does it actually matter? To have that much access to information? Is it once you cross a certain threshold where everyone could pretty much access the information that they want if they put in a little bit of effort, which we crossed that threshold a long time ago. At that juncture, how much does it really matter versus how much does it just make it easier for the people who are already going to be successful finding what they needed, but doesn't as a whole change things all that much besides maybe increasing efficiencies for those people? I don't know how I feel about that question, but I'm throwing it back as how much does it matter?
I think I get what you're saying, and I, for the most part, agree that it doesn't matter as much. What I would say, though, is the people who do have the initiative, the people who do have the drive to go out and do that, I think it's going to make their life easier. I'll give another example of a client, since you gave one, that they wanted to set something up in their system. They want to be able to do something within their company, but they had no idea even where to start looking. They had no idea to use your example, they had no idea what to type in the YouTube search bar. And just being able to describe their problem, describe what they're going through, and describe what they want to do, and throw that into ChatGPT, and AI will be able to tell them, hey, here's what you need, here's what you're looking for, and then take that information and then take that second step and learn on their own, whether that's YouTube, Coursera, Udemy, whatever it is. I think that's very helpful. But yeah, I mean, there is access. I think it's narrowing down from this huge, cloud of opportunities and things you can learn to exactly what you need in that moment is the big value.
Yeah. Do you guys think it's gonna widen the disparity that already exists somewhat? And we're talking about personnel at a company right now, right? You've got your folks who are super motivated. They want to do a really good job. They work really hard, right? And those folks obviously could be able to use AI, and in the vein of project management can leverage that too. But is it going to widen the disparity between folks who are super motivated and then the folks who are just kind of like, all right, trying to get by, I'm working a paycheck, I want to get from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and be able to clock out? Is it going to widen the disparity such that those folks are a little bit more visible, or either one, I guess, would become more visible?
You looking at me, kid? I'll go. I think
I was just thinking.
I was thinking the technical people, the people
Yeah.
who are able to leverage AI appropriately,
Yeah.
they're going to look the same as those high performers. I think you'll almost see four tiers four groups of people, but three tiers. I think you'll see the low performers that are lazy at the bottom, the high performers that that aren't technical are going to be in the same boat as the people who are low performers but are technical,
Mm-hmm.
because the low performers are going to be able to use AI to become high performers,
Mm-hmm.
and the non-technical high performers are just going to continue doing what they're doing. But then you have the people who are technical high performers that are going to distinguish themselves from the pack.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll have those three separate groups.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I could totally see that happening.
I think that's pretty
Interesting.
true, and I think that's relevant because if you're building a team,
Mm-hmm.
you want the high performers who also have the right aptitude to leverage the tools at their disposal in your leadership positions. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have that, then with all the emerging technologies out there, you're putting yourself like at a disadvantage. Because even though you have somebody really good by traditional standards, they're kind of just an average good performer if they can't take their natural state of being exceptional and then also leverage
And the
technology to
tools.
stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are people who are not as high performers as them but know how to leverage technology who will end up being on a level playing field,
Yeah.
despite under other circumstances they would have been a much lower level performer than those people. And so I think what's hard about that is you get a lot of small businesses who are they've had the same leadership teams for 20 years or 10 years, or right, depending on the age of the company, it's the owner and then they've got a couple employees. And so it's like, how, if you've got this environment where people who lead your business have been in that position since the early days of the internet in some instances, right? And now we are where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you adjust to put your business in the best position to be as effective as possible? Because
Mm-hmm.
to no fault of their own, really, the changes in technology have put them in a position where they're not fully equipped to deal with
Mm-hmm.
the current environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I promise I didn't mean to take us down the HR road with everything we've talked about, but this has been productive conversation. I think to kind of bring it back up, surface level, project management, the impact of AI on that function just about across every industry is going to continue to morph, right? We're going to need to continue to become more and more agile, right? More competitive in the way that we conduct project management because technology is going to continue to change. So whether you like it or not, you're going to have to leverage technology that's out there to be able to conduct the business that you need to conduct. And project management is right up there with them. So that's my first one. I'll kick it over to Ben.
All right, I'm going completely in left field, so I don't know if you
Let's
guys have
go.
another AI one, we can do that one first, and then I can go. But
Nope.
I don't have
oh,
another.
okay, all right. Well, what my article is about is something I think came out Thursday. It's a financial one, so
It's
basically,
October 9th, for the record.
yeah. So
2023.
I don't know if I don't know if I said that at the beginning, so I apologize if I didn't level set
yeah.
today.
So this came out October 5th, last Thursday, I believe, where it's talking about, I found it on CNBC. It's about the Supreme Court is currently seeing a tax case that could have major effects on the definition of when taxes need to be paid. on incoming earnings, and that's going to affect any organization that's a pass-through entity. So you're talking your LLCs, your S corporations, your partnerships. So has a big impact on small businesses because the vast majority, I would think, are LLCs, S corps, things like that. So
Yep.
So basically, long story short, there's a couple in the United States who own 10% of a India-based farming corporation. When earnings that aren't distributed to them, should they be taxed on that as income? And it basically creates the question of should income be taxed when it's realized or when it's theoretically created? And I think that's obviously going to be something that's big for small businesses. It talks about a deemed repatriation as part of the 2017 tax overhaul that was put in.
So what's the alternative? Like, are they saying that, like, if depending on the outcome of the case, are we saying that we would change to where you are only taxed if you get distributions from business?
What it's saying is if you have a cross-border relationship and
so this is specifically international.
Yeah, specifically international. Okay. So if you have a relationship, let's say with Canada or Mexico, I'm assuming the majority of our audience is American, but if you're in other countries, I apologize. But if you're working with other countries, when would you receive that tax consequence? And you have that ownership and you're supposed to receive those distributions. The timing of that obviously can have a big impact on cash flow and as well as tax brackets, things like that. So, I guess as far as the question, I don't have a great one. So what do you guys think about that?
So I will start, and I think that I hate taxes. Yeah, yeah. Tim can go second because I'll probably rant on taxes for a while. No, but in reality, I think it's interesting. I know this is something we don't operate internationally yet, but this is something that I've complained to my tax attorney about, which is we are an S corp, and when you are an S corp, it's pass through entity, meaning that if we make a profit as a business, even if as the owner of the business I don't pay myself that profit, I have to pay taxes on it. I can't leave it in the business for future payroll or future expenses. I can't hang on to it. I have to pay taxes on it whether I take it as a profit myself or not. And and it impacts my personal income as a family as well, combined with my wife. So it might make our income look a lot higher for tax bracket and other purposes than what we're actually taking home, right? And so that's a frustration on my part, mainly not being able to leave it in the business and earmarking it for future expenses. But the flip side of that is if you're like C corp, then your business has to pay taxes, and then you have to pay taxes as an individual too. So the tax system just kind of sucks overall. I think this is interesting on an international basis. I do think here's the thing that I would say. This is just an opinion. If you operate internationally and you own partial in some type of entity like that, you need to be paying attention to this ruling just from an applicability perspective. But I would say, what do I think of it? I think if you are a minority shareholder who does not work for the company, you should only be taxed on distributions.
No question.
It does not make sense for you to be taxed on profit that is not distributed to you if you're a minority shareholder who does not work for the business. If you are a majority business owner or some level of shareholder who is also employed by the business, meaning you get paid a salary by the business as well, I still don't like it, but it at least makes more sense in that context to pay taxes on it because you aren't a passive investor and you have a decision-making power in whether or not you get distributions. If you're a passive investor who doesn't own a majority, you don't even get a say in many circumstances, you don't get a say on whether there are distributions or not. So like you could be on the hook for a tax bill without receiving any distributions. That doesn't make sense to me at all. But if you're a majority shareholder or you work for the business then it at least makes a little bit more sense, even though taxes are theft altogether.
I think Cade's shown his true colors whenever it comes to taxes, and I'll show mine, and they
I think
align pretty
taxes are fine
closely.
under some limited circumstances, but yeah.
I agree. Agree. I would agree with what Cade said. That's the easy answer because he knows a lot more about financials and things like that than I do. At the end of the day, the government, and I'm going to get on a high horse here for just a second. The government exists to serve the people, right? And that includes business owners. That includes folks who have an equity interest in companies. So I think that, Ben, you asked the question like, what do you think about this? The government exists to serve the people, right? A business makes money. If shareholders, equity holders, don't realize that gain, i.e., their dividends, distributions, whatever you want to call it, then it shouldn't be taxed yet, right? At the end of the day, once it hits those individuals' bank accounts, right? If we're just like bearing all right now, that's when I believe it should be taxed, right? Once the people benefit from what it is that the business was able to bring in, we should pay our fair share of taxes. Like I'm all for that. I want to drive on a paved road, right? Like I want to live in a safe neighborhood and I want to send my kids to safe schools. Taxes go towards all of those things, but it's got to be at the right time. Cade, you're smiling, and I sense you
I'm
have a
just
comment,
smiling.
so I'm going to throw it
No,
to Ben. You right, man? I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Go ahead, Cade.
No. I mean, I agree with you for the most part. Like, I think all those things are good. I think there's a time and a place for taxes,
Yeah.
but I think we're on the same page. Like, if you don't actually get the money, if you haven't taken
Why are
the
you taxed
profit,
on? Yeah,
then what are you taxed from it, right? Like, there are better things.
exactly.
Most of the reasons, and there's also the question of like, is it even economically beneficial for the government to take taxes? Because
Hmm.
the most common reason that a business doesn't take distributions is to reinvest that money in the
Into the
business,
company.
right?
Hmm.
Or to keep money as a rainy day fund so that if things get tight, they don't have to lay people off, right? Like there's all kinds of reasons that businesses want to keep money in the business. So like, is getting that 1 year's worth of tax dollars worth the economic growth of potentially having to lay somebody off or not being able to invest that money in a business and helping it grow more? You know what I mean? Like, isn't a growing business who is hiring instead of firing going to have a more positive economic impact on the government than 1 year's worth of taxes? I
Taxes.
mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a valid question as well. What do you think, Ben?
I think I picked a good article because I knew I was going to get Cade to
Yeah.
talk about this. I wasn't sure about Tim, but no, I tend to agree. I mean, um, you know, it's it's. I think the other thing I like to think about is inflation, right? If we're in a high inflation period and I'm not taxed on things that I don't have immediate control over, uh, that's a little frustrating because the value of that by the time I'm able to get to it has diminished. Now inflation is going down and they're on a year over year basis. We're still having inflation, but the rate is significantly decreased from 6 months ago. But I'm thinking about the time cost of money and the ability to act on liquid money versus something that takes time to get into my bank account. I think that the timing of that should be matched up. So,
Yeah. Agreed.
yeah.
Okay. We're going to move on because we want to try to cover all of our topics for this session. But I got one for you. I think this will be fairly quickly, but I do think it's important to call to the attention of small business owners out there. Many small business owners sell physical goods, which means the upcoming holidays are going to be some of their busiest time of year. So, U.S. online holiday shopping, let me make sure I get this number right, is expected to hit 221 billion this year, with 51.2% of that coming from mobile devices. This will be the first time, if the expectation matches the actuals, that there has been more holiday shopping done on mobile phones than in brick and mortar, or I assume online as well on a regular computer. So, my initial reaction is, if your website isn't optimized for mobile, if you're not selling on mobile, if you run ads and you're not doing it on mobile things like Instagram, Facebook, the stuff that people are checking as mobile apps, Snapchat, whatever, like, you need to be optimized for mobile if you're targeting selling more during the holiday season. But just in general, Tim, let's start with you. What's your reaction and thoughts on that? And if I'm a small business owner, what action should I take based on that information?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of come back to what I said before. The world's kind of going that route, right? Like, I've got a phone. I can conduct just about everything except for a couple of things through my work on my cell phone, right? Like, I've got Microsoft Teams, I've got Microsoft Outlook. I'm able to keep the boat afloat from my cell phone. And I think it's the same from a shopping perspective, right? Like, people want what's easiest naturally, right? And what's easier than grabbing your cell phone whenever you're out grabbing coffee and ordering the thing that you forgot that you needed on Amazon real quick, right? So I think that those are the thoughts that I have. I think that that's kind of the natural progression of where we are from a consumer perspective. And companies like Amazon, like, other online folks, eBay, things like that, they know this, right? They employ entire teams of people to analyze consumer behavior, and then they adjust their product offerings and their software and their technology to be able to make them, the front runner whenever it comes to the propensity of where people are going to buy their stuff, right? So I think it's a natural progression to that, because people want what's easiest, right? What's easier than grabbing your cell phone and ordering something off of it. So I think it makes perfect sense. 221 billion is a ton of money, but it doesn't surprise me, honestly. America's very materialistic. I'm going to get on another high horse for a second, and very kind of consumer based. They're all about their stuff, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But at the end of the day, that is a ton of money per person. Ben can probably do 221 billion divided by 350 million faster than I can to see what the average, expense per person is in the country. But yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts.
I'll let ChatGPT cover that. Throwing it back to the previous topic.
$631. I just
What is it?
I was going to say it's 2/3, right?
Yeah, $631.
See, and that's per person. That's crazy. All right.
Yeah, so like if a family of four, I guess that would come out to like $2,400. That's kind of wild, actually. Like that.
Yeah. No, I echo what Tim said around, everything you can do on your phone. Everything you can do on a laptop, you can do on your phone. I know when I was out on PTO last week, I could still be bothered by Kate, the whole week on my phone because I had Teams and Outlook there. Right.
And he was bothered, for the record.
Yeah. I was playing golf, and I was
bothered is a strong word. I think he had the pleasure of correspondence with me even while he was out of the office.
We'll go with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about what happened.
It definitely didn't get my psyche and screw up around or anything.
Yeah, he blames me for his bad score.
Yeah, exactly. No, but yeah, I think everything that you can do on the laptop, you can do on your phone. And I think with a higher percent of the population every year being capable of using a phone, having a phone, especially as Gen Z and some of the younger people. I'm the youngest here, for those who don't know, so I have to talk about the young people.
Do we know what percentage of people don't have a phone today? I'm going to look that up real quick. No, keep talking. I'm going to look it up.
Probably like 3%, but yeah, I think that does that. The one thing I will say is that when you're looking at sales optimization, absolutely wholeheartedly agree. But when I'm thinking about marketing and ads, I don't want to say that, phones and mobile devices are the end all be all, because it doesn't necessarily, as a lot of business owners will know, the sales cycle isn't 30 seconds, right? It can very well be multiple days, multiple weeks, multiple months. So just because...
I think, can I say something to that real quick?
Yeah.
I think it depends on what you're selling, though, right?
It does, right.
Like if you're 100%, generally there are multiple touch points. We've all heard the 7 touch points to make a sale or somewhere in that ballpark. But I think service-based businesses take more touch points, more time. I think also the price, higher the ticket item, the more touch points, the more research goes into it. If you're selling $100 or less product, you probably can have a lot of single touch point sales. if you're selling a product, and the other thing I'll say about that, and then I want to let you finish your thought, but like, I do think high ticket items in the holiday season, you reduce the amount of touch points, right? Because if people feel an obligation to buy something for somebody versus at other times it might be a purchase for themselves. They got to talk themselves into it. They got to do whatever. But at Christmas, you're obligated to buy something for somebody. I think it drastically reduces the sales cycle time during that season.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think the one thing I'll say, and maybe this is a personal experience, but I wouldn't say that I've bought anything over $100, maybe $200 on my phone. So I think that's a differentiator. I know it's kind of going against what we're talking about in this whole article, is that more and more people are using their phones to buy things. But I, and maybe I'm showing my age here as I'm getting into my late 20s. I want to do a little more research. I want to do a little bit more understanding of a product on multiple websites and understand that before I, just click, add to cart and go.
A Pew Research Center report mentions that 85% of Americans own a smartphone.
Oh,
that's smartphone, but 97% own some sort of mobile device. They own a cell phone of some sort. So Ben, your 3%
probably not shopping on my dad's flip phone, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can figure out how to do it, right?
If smartphone is defined as something that you can buy something with or access the internet, then that's the number. But I think there's definitely value in advertising more towards people there, especially optimizing your website. That's going to be so key.
Yep. Okay. So, final two topics. Let's rapid fire it real quick. Tim and Ben.
I can go first real quick. My article's around the rising oil prices from the Israel-Hamas war for trucking logistics companies. I have a favorite one. You know who you are. So far, gas prices have not been affected according to the AAA, but there's a good chance because crude oil barrel prices are rising that could change over the next week.
What have futures done? Did you look at futures since that happened?
Yeah,
increased.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The numbers on here.
Thanks, folks. Go get your gas while you can.
4.3%, $86 a barrel for.
I think that impacts a lot more than just like logistics, though. Maybe not as much, but like my brother-in-law runs they're a contracting company, but they basically do like the dirt pads for houses, right? Like they work with builders and prep the sites and do the dirt pads, and like their biggest expense is fuel, equipment, like driving around, right? Like maybe their equipment payments are up there, but like their active operating costs, like fuel is their biggest expense. And so like, I think that impacts a lot of people who have to move around to job sites, who have to do like different things like that, because that's one of the biggest drivers, especially you're driving a big diesel truck pulling equipment around and you already get 10 miles a gallon. And that's going to be a really big expense for a lot of people.
All right, I'll go really fast because I know we're almost out of time. I kept with the project management theme just because that is my wheelhouse, and I was interested for small business owners what the most important project management functions or supporting systems could be. So in researching some articles, there was a really interesting one from Analytics Insight that I was able to find. They go through 10 different softwares that small businesses can significantly benefit from as it relates to project management. And I'll pick two because I think we're almost out of time here. One of the ones that they bring up here, and this is what we hear consistently whenever we're doing project management office implementations with some of our clients, is this idea of resource management tools. So in the industry, it's called a PSA, a professional services automation. If you are a service-based company, you provide services to other businesses or to consumers even potentially, you need to have a way to track your resources, to manage your resources. whether that's your human resources, so being able to track time that people are devoting to specific portions of projects that they're working on, or even from a budgeting perspective. There, for small, medium-sized businesses, particularly the small side, sometimes you can get one system that will accomplish both of those things. And here at Brewster Consulting Group, we always try to make sure that we're giving advice in the best interest of a company as opposed to selling you a software, right? We're not a software sales company. We're in the business of doing business with you and leveraging the infrastructure you already have to get the most outcomes out of what it is that you already do. So a resource management tool would be one that you would want to make sure that you invest in, because they're worth their weight in gold and pay for themselves. The second one is, where is it? Reporting and analytics tools, right? Ben and Cade know a lot more about data analytics than I do, but at the end of the day, you need to have, for sure. At the end of the day, you need to be able to measure what it is that you are doing as a business, right? So the data that you're intaking as part of your sales process, as part of your operational processes, whatever it is, you need to make sure that you're pulling levers at your business that are going to bring the most value to you according to what your desired outcomes are. And there's no way to do that without a tool that actually shows you how you're performing, right? We have a whole methodology for how we actually get data, cleansed and accurate and all of that Kate and Ben could talk a whole lot more to, and I won't bore you with it, but reporting and analytics means is absolutely necessary at your business to know how you're performing and know what levers you can pull to be able to accomplish the goals that you have for your business. So that's the last article that I read and wanted to bring to the table today. Back to
Perfect.
you.
Back to you.
We're on the news.
Right.
I feel like we're on the news a little bit. We haven't done this before a lot.
We're on the news.
It's actually
we haven't a lot.
It's actually really
This is
fun.
the first time we've ever done it. Yeah, it is fun. Okay, I'm going to stop this.